Hey folks, it's me again. Coming to you from my cozy little living room. I wanted to talk today about guidance and how to receive guidance. Based on my experience pursuing the spiritual life and also with the lens of Course in Miracles. I am someone that has always been drawn to the mystics and I think the definition of a mystic that I like is one who's drawn to direct experience with the divine rather than needing an external medium, whether that be a priest or, necessarily going to church or relying on dogma. I'm someone that really just naturally have always been like, I want to go through the guidance of my inner guide. I want to make my decisions based on what feels right to me and my own experience and my gut. And so naturally I find myself most excited when I start to read specifically from mystics about what the specific strategies are for them to receive guidance. And I want to distinguish that there's guidance and then there's direct experience with God. There's a section in the back of the course that's separate from the text. The supplements, it's called the Song of Prayer. In the section called True Prayer, it's all about how the true goal is connection with God, and guidance is kind of the reverberations that you receive as a result of first connecting with God. I just want to read a part of it. It's talking about prayer and ask that we are allowed to ask for things. That there are decisions to make here and they must be made whether they be illusions or not. And it says the form of the answer, if given by God, will suit your need as you see it. But this is merely an echo of the reply of his voice. The real sound is always a song of thanksgiving and of love. You cannot then ask for the echo. It is the song that is the gift. Along with it comes the overtones, the harmonics, the echoes, but these are secondary. In true prayer, you hear only the song. All the rest is merely added. You have sought first the kingdom of heaven, and all else has indeed been given you. That brings a tear to my eye and just speaks to the beauty of coming to God is the gift in and of itself. And of course, you will be given everything else you need and seek, that's from the Bible too, like seek first the kingdom of heaven and all else will be given to you. I think that's from the Bible. Maybe it's also from this course. Oh, maybe it is from the course. You have sought first the kingdom of heaven and all else has indeed been given you. And it says the secret of true prayer is to forget the things you think you need. To ask for the specific is much the same as to look on sin and then forgive it. Also in the same way, in prayer you overlook your specific needs as you see them and let them go into God's hands. There they become your gifts to him. For they tell him that you would have no gods before him, no love but his. What could his answer be but your remembrance of him? Can this be traded for a bit of trifling advice about a problem of an instant's duration? God answers only for eternity, but still all answers are contained in this. All little answers are contained in this, it says. And one more piece I'll read. Prayer is a stepping aside, a letting go, a quiet time of listening and loving. It should not be confused with supplication of any kind, because it is a way of remembering your holiness. Why should holiness entreat, being fully entitled to everything love has to offer? And it is to love you go in prayer. Prayer is an offering, a giving up of yourself to be at one with love. There's nothing to ask because there's nothing left to want. That nothingness becomes the altar of God. It disappears in Him. Just going to take a breath to soak that in. And I think that makes it loud and clear, just reminding us as we think about guidance and receiving guidance that the true... I always am struggling to find the word I want, like the true goal, the true beauty, the true purpose of prayer is to connect with God and enjoy remembering our holiness and our oneness and our wholeness. The real sound is always a song of thanksgiving and of love. And all things will be added onto that, the echoes, or the overtones, the harmonics, the echoes, but these are secondary. In true prayer, you hear only the song. So let's remember as we think about guidance that the true goal is to celebrate a time when you are surrendering what you think you need and truly coming to God empty-handed. I think that's in here too somewhere, that come empty-handed unto your God. Forget all the things you think you need. And remember your wholeness. Honestly, part of me is like, that's all that I need to say. But there's other pieces that I want to add. So this is true prayer. We have these ideas of prayer, especially coming from Christianity or Catholicism. There's like these rote texts of prayers, the Our Father, the Hail Mary, the prayer that you say before eating. It's these texts. It's one-sided. It's my brain chatter going out into the ether. And reading the entirety of the Song of Prayer, we're reminded that prayer is a listening. Let me say that again. Prayer is a stepping aside, a letting go, a quiet time of listening and loving. A teacher I talk about a lot, Peace Pilgrim, I've said this before, she talks a lot about how we spend a lot of our time talking to God, talking at God, and not a lot of time spent listening. So I think that what I first want to say when we talk about guidance is that prayer, first and foremost, is about listening. And the biggest thing is making space to listen. I think that's the biggest thing that I want to get across is in order to receive guidance, we first need to make space to be listening and connecting with God. Coming from a place of remembering our connection with Him. And from that place, we can hear what we need to hear. It talks about forgetting about what we think we need. And instead listening. And remembering that we already have everything that we need. And once we come from that place, like we will get more specific advice about how to move through the world specifically. But to do our best to not come, to use prayer as a way to remind ourselves of our abundance and that we have everything we need. So I really encourage people, and including myself, to one way to receive guidance, make space for it. For me, that looks like walks through nature. It looks like me sitting on my bed with my eyes closed, quiet, my mind attempting to be quiet and just listening. Maybe I start it with saying something like, "Dear Jesus, come be with me. Let me surrender and listen." Something like that. And just spending time in silence. Peace Pilgrim talks about being receptive and silent. So having an energy and air of receptivity that you're willing to receive, and that we let go of the ideas that we think we have for our life and our world, and openness to hear. Another big thing for me is taking time away from screens, the internet, computer, smartphones. When I've had full days with no, sometimes I'll take full days with no screen time. I'll spend the entire day at the park, really just kind of like almost a cleanse, and with an air of listening and being with myself and with nature. And it really opens up a lot of space to hear what Spirit has to say to me. And also not forcing it. If I'm like really let go of the shame of like, I must hear guidance, which is really what I did a lot of in my formative years. I'll also mention that I've let go of having my daily phone be a smartphone, and I invested in something called a light phone, and it does not connect to the internet, like social media apps. It doesn't have a web browser, it doesn't have email. It really just has very finite practical apps. It does text, it does phone, GPS, podcasts, but it doesn't do almost anything else. It's not a smartphone. I don't get photos on it. Photos do get sent to my email, but I think it's a really good way for me to not get lost in my phone. I've mentioned before, phones for me, smartphones really have become a way for me to avoid my feelings really easily. Of course, I can do that anyway without a smartphone, but it's just that much more accessible and tempting for me to really avoid myself and avoid the inner work and attention that I would like to make more space for. Another way to invite guidance into my life is to simply take 5 seconds throughout the day, at the beginning of the day especially, and at the end of the day, and as much as I can remember in the middle of the day, to remind myself to ask the Holy Spirit to be in charge. And really, it's when I'm asking that, I'm asking myself to myself to step aside, to let the Holy Spirit within me to come to the forefront. So it's really me asking myself, my ego, to step back. It's almost what it sounds like is me saying, like, Jenny, are you willing to step back and let the Holy Spirit within you come forward? And just asking kind of throughout the day, like, who's in charge right now? And often I can feel like a real shift of like, oh, I was barreling ahead like a train. And I like to let the one who knows come to be the one in charge. There's a prayer in the Course that I'll recite here. It's a good way to let the Holy Spirit be in charge. I'm here only to be truly helpful. I'm here to represent Him who sent me. I need not worry about what to say or what to do, for He who sent me will direct me. I'm content to go where He asks, knowing He goes there with me. I will be healed as I let Him teach me to heal. And again, we don't have to be heavy about it or force anything, but it's a gentle invitation for the Holy Spirit to come and lead. There's other, small ways, like I journal, and that can be a good way to process. I do a lot of voice memos to myself when I need to work through things and process things. That's mainly a tool that I use for kind of processing emotions and forgiveness, which brings me to my next one, that forgiveness is a great way to open up myself to more guidance. The more that we forgive, the more we are putting the Holy Spirit in charge and kind of giving the ego the back seat. And so the more layers that we peel back of resistance and guilt, the more that our natural self with a capital S, comes to the forefront. And then, of course, true prayer. Gary Renard has a section in his Disappearance of the Universe book about original prayer. He calls it original prayer in there. And he talks about just giving 5 minutes in the morning and the evening of the day to surrender all thoughts and join in true prayer. And he talks about the Song of Prayer. Forgetting what we think we need and remembering our true oneness with God for even just a short time. And so that's another excellent way to open ourselves up to guidance. And then finally, the workbook lessons, especially because the workbook lessons ask us to tune back into God at regular intervals throughout the day. Sometimes it's 15-minute, is it ever short as 15-minute intervals? It's usually, I think, like hourly intervals. It starts off just a few, like morning and evening, then it starts to go like 3 times a day, and then it eventually goes toward every hour, I think. And, I'd say the more often throughout the day that we are able to connect to Source, to Spirit, and remember the framework of, what we're here to do, that's a great way to continually put the Holy Spirit in charge and receive guidance. I also do, small things like, I use tarot cards, but I make it very clear, like, this is my way that's one way that I let the Holy Spirit have the floor. It's kind of a given that before I lay cards down, like tarot cards down, I kind of connect to Spirit, and I'm like, I ask that Spirit chooses the cards for me when I'm asking about something, or sometimes I'll just say, what would you have me know? Or what am I not looking at? What am I not seeing? What would you have me know? And I think that's a good way too. Margot Krickar talks about, opening up the course to a random page, opening books to random pages as a way to practice using our intuition and our access to guidance, and just opening up spaces for the Holy Spirit to talk to us and offer us guidance. I also think guidance can come through other people. Sometimes other people, there's that parable about like the guy who was drowning, and an ambulance comes and the cops come and someone with a boat comes, and he's like, no, God said he would come save me. And then he dies and he gets to heaven. He's like, God, I thought you were going to save me. And he's like, I tried. I sent someone in a boat. I sent someone in an ambulance. And it just is showing, there are gifts and support systems that come in words of wisdom and guidance that comes through people in our daily lives. And to remain open that is a way that guidance and support can come through, is through our loved ones or through strangers. And so to just remain open, that we're not really rigid about the ways that we think that guidance comes to us. I think those are some of the ways that I would say for now. Ask for guidance, be receptive to it. I think my biggest thing is be receptive to it and make space for it. And since Peace Pilgrim talks about prayer is a sincere seeking for a good thing. So seeking for a good thing, seeking for guidance is a good way to get it. And it can also arise as, I sometimes talk about it being like a blossoming of a knowing within me. It usually doesn't come as a result of my overthinking something. And that brings me to another thought that I want to say. A big strategy of mine in the past for decision making was trying to think my way into an answer. It was a really unkind thing to do to myself. It really drove me nuts. And the more that I learned to stop thinking so much, the better off I was, and to also stop placing so much importance on the decisions I make in a very literal way in this world. There's a line in the Course that says, you need be neither careful nor careless. You need only throw your cares upon me. And that helped immensely when I worked toward making decisions. To me, that just says, to some extent, it doesn't really matter what you choose. It's also making things special. Like, the Course talks a lot about specialness, and especially the early workbook lessons, I was looking at them, my meaningless thoughts are showing me a meaningless world, and not placing more importance on one object over another. And that's really undoing our idea that like anything in this world is more important than the other. The Course teaches sameness, that everything is the same. And that's helpful to me because I think I make decisions and place so much importance on making the quote unquote right decision, but that's a form of specialness. And so when I hear the quote, you need be neither careful nor careless, you need only throw your cares upon me, it reminds me that it doesn't really fucking matter like what I choose. And to me it kind of says like it'll come out in the wash, like Spirit is guiding this ship anyway, and I can just only do my best and trust that like even if I make a decision, there's so much I don't have control over, and that even if I make a choice, something else will probably happen, and to just kind of take the pressure off of making a certain choice, and to just make a choice, and to let it not matter so much. So yeah, that feels connected and related. Yeah, so maybe I'll leave it there. And yeah, thanks for listening. Come back next time.